No,
You know.
Yes, they're really cute, but you only have to hit them 5 times. Isn't it?
You can buy them.
no,
Yes, yeah,
doors open.
yeah, I was looking at because I lose plenty.
Yes.
Councillors, welcome to ordinary meeting 4519. Could you please be upstanding? I'd like to show my respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, of elders past, present and emerging. I'll now invite Father Brian to give the prayer.
Thank you, Zach. First a piece of scripture from the Gospel of St. John. It was before the festival of the Passover, and Jesus and his disciples were at supper. Jesus got up from the table, removed his outer garment, and taking a towel, wrapped it round his waist. He then poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel he was carrying. When he had washed their feet and put on his clothes again, he went back to the table. "You understand what I've done to you?" he asked. "You call me Master and Lord, and rightly, so I am. By then, your Lord and Master have washed your feet. You should wash each other's feet. I have given you an example so that you may copy what I have done to you. A new commandment I give you: love one another as I have loved you." So our very brief reflection tonight is on service. Sign and fruit of love. Service with justice and integrity, without fear or favour, and with a special care for the weak and the needy. We give people titles which speak of the service we expect of them: pastor, public servant, minister, prime minister. We honour service and the love from which it flows. Australians of the Year, our Anzac veterans, mothers on Mother's Day, fathers on Father's Day, and at pretty much every funeral eulogy we've ever heard. We are all called to serve as Christ served, to love as Christ loved. Let us pray. Almighty, ever-living God, in whose hand lies every human heart and the rights of all people, look with favour on this assembly of our mayor, our council members, and our fellow citizens. Graciously pour out on them your spirit of truth, justice, and wisdom. They may decide everything for the well-being of our community and in accordance with your will. We make this prayer in Jesus' name.
Amen. Please be seated, councillors. Thank you, Father Brian. I remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast live online. Members of the public are advised that their voice and image will form part of the live streaming of the council meeting, and the webcast archive and publicly available online. By attending a council meeting, whether as a proponent or objector, addressing the council, or as an observer or other interested party, members of the public consent to the use of their image, voice and personal information. Councillors, there are no apologies, any declarations of interest? If not, we will move to the confirmation of minutes of ordinary meeting 4518 held 24th of April 2023. Councillor Sanderson.
I don't wish to move at this stage. I wonder whether there's a way to deal with it we would prefer. There is a very important missing item missing completely, and that's the record of voting for the deputy mayor. The final motion records that moved on the motion of Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Prieston, that the council elected deputy mayor. That was passed unanimously, but then we go on to the next item. So there's no record of candidates voting for who was ultimately elected.
Councillor Sanderson, I'll take that as a question. I'll refer you to page 4, the proceedings in brief, then the recommendation points 1, 2 and 3. And that the resolution on page 5, 054-23, 055-23, 056-23.
No.
Sorry.
Correct me, Mr. Mayor, if I could. Resolution 054/23. The motion there is that the lengthened term of Deputy Mayor be until September 2024 local government elections.
I will defer to the General Manager.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Sanderson. On page 4 of the minutes, Councillor Sanderson, it actually says as the returning officer that I've recorded the votes there. The General Manager asked for a show of hands of the councillors who were supporting Councillor Sanderson. There were 2 for Councillor Williams, Councillor Sanderson, and then the next paragraph, there is also a record of those show of hands in that narrative. Page 4 of the minutes.
Page 4 of the minutes, not of the business paper. Councillor Sanderson.
Oh, okay. All right. Just
So I got a mover and a seconder for this one. Moved Councillor Preston, seconded Councillor Bagara. Any discussion, Councillor Preston? Councillor Sanderson?
just apologise. It does appear in the wrong order.
Yep, that's okay. Thank you. Any other speakers? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. I'll now move to item 2.1, Mayoral Minute on the Emergency Services Levy. I will read the recommendation that 1, Council writes to the Treasurer, the Minister for Emergency Services, the Minister for Local Government and the local state member to take immediate action to A, restore the Emergency Services Levy subsidy, B, decouple the Emergency Services Levy from the rate peg to enable councils to recover the full cost, C, to develop a fairer, more transparent and financially sustainable method of funding critically important emergency services, and 2, that Council writes to the Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal advising of the financial sustainability impact of the increase on emergency services levy. Is there a seconder, Councillor Quinn? Councillors, I will just say that the tying of the emergency services levy increase to the rate peg does have a material impact on our budget. This, along with the waste levy and other levies that are not recouped by local government, will have impact on our budget, which we're considering later on in the business paper. So I think that it's entirely appropriate that we write to the Treasurer, Minister for Emergency Services and Minister for Local Government, at least to decouple the levy from the rate peg, but also importantly to restore the emergency services levy subsidy so that it doesn't have a material impact on our budget. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for bringing this matter to Council's attention. I get very frustrated with the way local government's treated by state and sometimes federal government. It tends to have no respect or regard to the limitations of councils to recoup a lot of these cost shifting processes which various levels of government impose upon councils. It's unfair on our residents, and I commend you on the recommendation. I think we need to speak up, and I would hope that our local government association would also weigh into the fray.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 2.2, Mayoral Minute on the Vizina Friendship Pact 35th anniversary. I will read the recommendation again, that the report be received and noted, that 2, Councillor Richard Quinn and Councillor Ross Williams be acknowledged as attending the 35th anniversary celebrations of the Huntersville-Vizina Friendship Pact in Vizina from the 16th to 19th of June 2023, and the 3, that Councillor Richard Quinn be appointed as the representative of the municipality of Huntersville to read a statement at the Vizina celebrations on behalf of the Mayor. Councillors, obviously significant anniversary for the Levesenay Friendship Pact. I was aware that Councillor Quinn was going over. I wasn't aware until a bit later that Councillor Williams is attending, but it is a fantastic thing that we've got that 2 councillors going to be in attendance and 2 emeritus mayors. Noting that Councillor Crassoy will be representing myself on Wednesday night's information evening for the cohort that will be hopefully going over to Levesenay in and around that time. I'd like to formally put this recommendation to you, but also I know that Councillor Quinn is busily writing the bones of what will be read out at the 35th and at 35th anniversary of the celebrations of the Hunters Hill Levesenay Friendship Pact. Any speakers? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I rise to my feet on this occasion because it is an extremely significant event. It's not just like a lot of the twinnings or associations between councils and overseas organisations. I don't think you were born, or some of the other councillors were born at the time that this was formed. So I think it's relevant that I fill in a little bit of the history of this, as I was the Deputy Mayor of the day, and it was my duty on the Bicentennial Committee to help organise the attendance of both the Mayor of Levesenay, along with the entourage, as well as the Defence Minister, the French Defence Minister. And actually it was quite a big occasion because they flew in by helicopter on Wheel Park. And it was a time when the French were not too liked in the South Pacific. And so we had snipers on the roof, and it was quite a security-driven process. But as in Hunters Hill, there was a very large attendance. The town hall was packed, and when we had the photos on the stairs outside, the whole street was packed with people. It's a historic friendship pact because, as I say, it was part of the bicentenary, and the French government thought of what it could give to the Australian community on that important event, and it decided to give 3 friendship pacts. And Hunters Hill, by hook or crook, ended up being one of the 3 communities in Australia that was given a friendship pact, and that was with Levesenay. And the relationship between Levesenay and Hunters Hill are quite similar. You might think that in Paris, communities would be 9th century, mid-century age, but Levesenay was formed in 1840, about the same time as which Hunters Hill was getting up and running, and it is a purpose-built community on an old hunting ground of the Louis XIV's forest. So there are a lot of similarities. The demographic is very similar, and as a result of that friendship pact being formed at the bicentenary, I subsequently went on to be mayor, and in 1989, community came to me and said, well, how can we advance this relationship? So we got onto the Jumelage Committee in Levesenay, and the student exchange program was formed. And I must admit, the first one we held in 1990 was overwhelming. We had 30 students, and it was quite an interesting process of finding accommodation and also schools to take them. It has now flourished over many years, over that period, 35 years, and there's been hundreds and hundreds of students through the process. And I've yet to find one student that has been on that 6-week excursion or exchange that hasn't been changed by the opportunity. It gives people a chance to be independent and to develop their own confidence in another land. I also think it's probably a shame that the opportunity for myself to be part of that representation of the council to Levesenay is not on offer. I'd also like to make it very clear that my attendance is at my own cost and my own expense. And so thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Williams. As I believe is councillor Quinson, thank you for reminding me about my being younger than the not only the Friendship Pact, but as I just realised, I'm younger than the exchange program as well. And I think councillor Preston is as well. Councillors, any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll
Councillor
just add also that I just want to put on the public record that both of us are attending at our own personal expense.
Correct.
It's not being funded by the council.
Thank you, councillor. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Now move to item 4.1, draft 2023-2024 operational plan and budget on page 5. Is there a mover? Move councillor Crassoy, second to councillor Quinn. Any discussion, councillor Crassoy?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's incredibly self-explanatory. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, councillors? If not, councillor Sanderson,
Yes, I'd like,
speaking for.
no, I'd like to move it amendment at this stage. I won't speak at this point in time.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move.
Councillor Sanderson, could you just hold while we get the tech right? Councillor Sanderson, go ahead.
Good. Yes, the amendment I'd like to move is that we insert between points 1 and 2, 2 being that, or the new 2 being that the following expenditure removed from the draft operational plan and budget. A, $100,000 for the Town Hall Civic Kitchen, and B, the $45,000 for LGA Street sign harmonisation. And 3, that the following fees and charges be revised upward. A, medium and high television film charges. If I can speak on the motion now.
Just a moment, councillor Sanderson. We just need to get this correct.
Let's take it. Well, on your right.
Councillor Sanderson, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The reason I move the motion and in this form is that if councillors would like to turn to page 162 of the business paper, there's a table there with base case. This is in the long-term financial plan. And you'll see as you go through it, or if you refer to the
Sorry, councillor. Sorry. Was there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Williams, please continue.
Okay. If you turn to page 162 and look at the second line of figures, you'll see what is currently a surplus in this year is actually shown as a negative figure. If as you go across, they become positive figures, which in fact that means that they are deficit, not net operating results. I think we need to do more than just have a property strategy to reverse the financial outcome of this council. If you look at some of the figures there, we're talking multiple millions and increasing. you know, a property strategy, we'll be selling at least one property every year to be able to get on top of the situation. We have to do more than that, and I think we need to start now. So the reason I picked I've formatted the motion in the way that I have is that I hope other councillors have had a close look at the figures and that there are other things they may wish to add. However, I'd like to put the amendment as it stands at the present time, but I note that the way I've structured the amendment is quite easy. If other councillors would like other items to be inserted, they can be. I prefer the motion is put as it is, but I'm sure that there will be other people who will add other items.
Thank you, councillor Sanderson. Any speakers against the amendment? For the amendment? Right to reply, councillor Sanderson.
I don't think that's required. I think that, these are two items that you know, we heard the other night with respect to the 100,000 for the kitchen equipment that I asked a question about the payback period for that. It seemed to be quite long, not even allowing for depreciation and foregone interest and all those sort of things that come into the equation as well. The other thing that we heard was that we're not getting great utilisation of the town hall, and there was a suggestion then that we might reduce the hire charges to the town hall. And if you look at the business paper, and in actual fact, that is part of what this budget is recommending. I therefore, you know, think that it's important for, you know, I can't see the sense in spending up $100,000. With respect to the 45,000, that's purely for harmonisation of signs. I totally agree that the signs are in poor condition, need to be replaced. But in terms of the suggestion that we start replacing signs because they don't match others, is a $45,000 we really cannot afford.
Thank you, councillor. I'll now put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That is lost. The original motion now becomes the motion. Any speakers for the motion? Against the motion? Councillor Williams.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a few questions, if I may, in relation to matters within the document.
You may.
The previous discussions, we agreed to remove the property strategy from the document, but it still appears to be in there. We seem to have complete the Gladesville master plan, but I thought we weren't proceeding with that at this stage. And also we have investigation of feasibility of AFL at Buffalo Creek Reserve, which we declined previously to support a funding application. So I was just wondering, Mr. Mayor, why those matters are still within the plans.
I believe Ms Goodman is ready and willing to answer your questions, but I'll go through the general manager first if you have anything to add.
I'll just refer to the director, Mr. Mayor, and if need be, make some comments.
Thank you, Councillor Williams, Mr. Mayor, councillors, the general manager. On page 31, we've got alternative options there for our actions for the operational plan that may have any reference to the draft copy of the infrastructure plan. What we have is an alternative option, which is more encompassing and obviously looks at a broader range of options for that generate alternate sources for income, as opposed to the original property strategy action that we had within the document.
Councillor Williams.
Further question. But in the document on page 7, it doesn't say delete. It doesn't say to proceed, it says deliver a property strategy. I'm happy if you put there that that's deleted and that we're going, or it's superseded by this other one, which sounds much more sensible to me. There's original action, Benny.
Ms Goodman.
Thank you, Councillor Williams, for that. Yes, I am happy to include as part of this to delete this management, if that suits.
Well, that's what I thought.
Councillor Vergara. Question?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it feasible to not delete it and leave it in, but make it a little p and a little s, so it's not a defined term? And then that fits with the objective on page 31, which is to look at opportunities
General Manager
to deliver
or Ms. Goodman?
future
Mrs. Goodman?
sustainability.
That is certainly something that I would be happy to put on place on exhibition for the community and council to comment on. If that's what the councils would like to do.
Thank you. Councillors, any more questions?
Mr Mayor.
Councillor
I raised
Williams.
a question on page 27 and 28 in relation to three items there that I thought we decided not to proceed with. Being the Gladesville Master Plan and the AFL.
Ms. Goodman.
Thank you. What we did discuss with the council briefing, Councillor Williams, that we would bring back to council further on the Gladesville Master Plan outlining a projects for council to consider at the July meeting.
And the AFL thing.
And the AFL, I don't believe the council has actually resolved not to continue to investigate discussions and considerations about AFL at Buffalo Creek. So it hasn't been removed from the operational plan as a result.
I can potentially embellish that, Ms. Goodman. We considered a presentation by AFL at the Sports and Recreation Committee meeting, in which the committee resolved to investigate the placement of AFL at Buffalo Creek further. And I believe that was minuted and put to council some months ago. I don't know if we've scoped that work out yet, but I might ask the General Manager whether that's something that they're looking into actively.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. You do rightly point out that was minuted through the Sports and Recreation Committee to continue discussions with the AFL to scope future possibility of the use of Buffalo Creek for AFL. It's my understanding that operationally that staff are continuing to have those conversations with AFL, and that would be ongoing discussions and then brought back to council at the appropriate time. Mr Mayor, if I may, could I take the opportunity just to do some response to Councillor Sanderson's discussion around the kitchen and the signs?
Yes.
If I may. I'll deal with the kitchen first. So my apologies that I had COVID for the most recent briefing. Quite simply, how this started was that in very simple terms, Councillor Sanderson and other councillors, the ovens in the town hall kitchen don't work. And the remainder of the fittings and general storage area and cooking preparation area, respectfully, are incredibly outdated. So our capacity to, I guess, promote the town hall as a venue, for example, for weddings is very limited. Now, yes, somebody could hire the town hall and bring in an external caterer, but even external caterers, when they come in to use a facility like that, would have an expectation that, for example, they could keep food warm. So as a consequence of that, we got an estimate, and I stress the word estimate, not a formal procurement process. And for a very high grade fit out, it was in the order of about $140,000. And I said to the staff, well, look, pragmatically, we can't afford that. So hence why the figure of $100,000 went in instead of $140,000. And in regards to the payback, Councillor Sanderson, I would have spoken to this at the briefing had I not been sick. But in simple terms, if we were able to promote the town hall with a better kitchen or a new kitchen facility, and we got 10 extra bookings, that would be in the order of around 10,200. So if you do your maths, if we got 20 bookings a year extra, the payback period's 5 years. And if we get 10 a year, the payback period is 10 years, or we're putting in half and recouping half after 5 years if we only get 10 extra bookings. With regards to the signs, the first thing I would like to do is congratulate the staff. We can't make proper decisions if we don't have data. And I asked a very simple question several months ago proactively. Could somebody please tell me where is the inventory and the audit of our signage? It did not exist. So I can tell you now that the staff have worked overboard to now have a comprehensive master file of all of our streets. And in a nutshell, it comes down to three categories: street signs, information or interpretive signs, and then our open spaces signage, i.e. our parks. Now, for all three, if we were to go out tomorrow and replace all of those signs from scratch, it would be somewhere in the order of $400,000 to $450,000. Now, you will recall at a briefing that I originally suggested, and I stress the word suggested because let's just remember that you have the prerogative to reject the budget bid of $40,000 for the street signs. But I originally proposed a program over 3 years of $150,000 to do the whole lot in a measured, pragmatic rollout. I then reconsidered our position of how we go about the tackle of our signs. Now, in the reconsidered position, I'm proposing through the budget process to do the street signs. Now, I know that Councillor Williams has made this comment before, and I respect the comment where he says that, in a nutshell, that it might be a nice to have, but is it a need to have? I can't really argue against that, but it's just an issue of timing because eventually they need to be replaced. But the most pertinent point is that I'd like to make is this. Quite rightly, we are a municipality that prides itself on character. If you were to walk 800 metres in any direction of our municipality, you will find street signs with different colours, different typography. Some are uppercase, some are lowercase, different designs of colour palette, and multiple designs of our crown, our council crown or crest. If we want to live and breathe character, our street signs need to be cohesive and they need to look contemporary. It would be my view that this is the most modest budget inclusion that allows us in the next 12 months to completely replace our street signages and get uniformity. Most importantly, in a very measured way, it now gives us 12 months to go and chase grant funding in regards to the information and interpretive signing, which are weather beaten, and in some cases, as Councillor Williams and I have observed in a walk in Tobin Creek, you can't read some of the signs. The grants will allow us also to replace those interpreted signs to leverage technology. And what I mean by that is we put QR codes on those signs that tell the history of the areas of where those interpreted signs are, and to also showcase the Indigenous background of those particular areas. And the reason why I haven't asked for any money in round one for open spaces is that our SB provision will allow for the replacement of those open spaces in future years. So this is a staged, measured approach. So in a nutshell, in year one, we fix and get uniformity and address the character of our municipality so we have uniformity of our street signage. Over the next 12 months, we access grants to replace our information interpreted signages, and the open spaces ones will take care of themselves through the SV. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Sanderson.
If I could just make one clarification, it was very clear that I had no problem with $70,000 that's in the budget for replacement of damaged and visible signs.
Thank you, councillor. Any discussion? Councillors Williams.
Another question, I'd like to move an amendment, Mr. Mayor. It relates to the same structure which I guess Councillor Sanderson put forward, that we delete the consultants for the $40,000 for the assessment of the depot.
Councillor, let me just pull up the and we'll get some wording formally.
Page 51.
Could you please put your amendment formally, Councillor Williams?
It would probably best go before point 3. the council not proceed with the proposed consultancy in relation to the site analysis report of the depot.
Councillor, is that your amendment as on screen?
Yes.
Yes, is there a seconder? Seconded, councillor Sanderson. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've raised this on many occasions. But,
Sorry, Ms Goodman, you can you can retire for now.
He'll be back.
I've raised this issue on many occasions that we need to get on to resolve issues associated with the depot. The depot has remained vacant now for several years. It's producing no income, and we're paying out $90,000 a year to Lane Cove Council. Clearly, the solution, and the only solution, is to bring the depot back home. To spend $40,000 with a consultant to tell us the obvious, I think is not a good use of council funds, considering that we're going to run a budget deficit this year before grants of $2.5 million. And I think what Councillor Sanderson is trying to suggest, and what I'm suggesting here, is that when you're running a deficit budget, you need to look at what things you really need to do and those things that could be done in a different way or deferred to a later date. And I think this is a prime example where we don't need consultants to tell us the obvious. And I know the general manager will probably say we do, but that's my view. And it's one that when we went down the process to enter into the contractual arrangements with Lane Cove, there was a whole lot of not assumptions, but not promises, but a whole lot of commentary that this would be a net benefit to council. From what I've seen so far, it is not working in the way that was originally intended. And more importantly, we haven't been able to lease the property in several years, which was one of the planks of the original proposal, to ensure that we can offset some of that $90,000 which is being passed on to Lane Cove when we could save it here. So that's my reasoning behind it. We should be responsible users of council's and our community's funds. And when you're in a deficit situation, things do sometimes have to not be proceeded with.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers against? Against, councillor Prieston, no, for? If not, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That is lost. The original motion is back on the table. Councillors, any discussion for?
Can I ask
Councillor Williams.
I note in a couple of places there, it has a category of payment to government. And in this case, there's that 90,000 for that. And also the same with the library services. I thought we had contractual arrangements and therefore it would be a service rather than, or what does payment?
I'll pass through to the finance director.
Through the mayor, through the general manager, essentially the way that these are effectively mini, if you want to call it, income and expense statement based on the Office of Local Government Code of Accounting requirements. So materials and services wouldn't include payments to other local authorities, and because Lane Cove that would be considered under other expenses. So that's why we've categorised it as such. So essentially there's this financial year, there's the final contribution for the depot and also the licence fee as well.
Thank you. Any other speakers for? Against? Councillor Sanderson.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are a few things I'd like to point out. There's one that's an error on page 49 of the paper. There's a negative number where in fact it should be a positive number right in the bottom left-hand corner. That's expenditure under the heading service community excellence. So that should be corrected before it goes out. Other things that I was going to comment on.
Sorry, councillor Sanderson, could you clarify exactly what you're saying is an erroneous number?
It is on the bottom of
Page
page
49.
49 on the extreme right hand side. If you do the sum, there's income of 460,609, expenditure of 3,330,896. The expenditure being less than the income, that should be a positive number.
Sorry, thank you, councillor Sanderson.
Then look, some of the other things are on the go into the budget, but there are a few things that I would point out. An item that came to the traffic or the Movement and Transport Committee the other day to do with Crown Street Henley suggests that there will be lesser expenditure than the amount allocated if council is to follow up on the direction that committee was going. And that being grant funding, that should be reallocated. But there are other opportunities, and unfortunately, council didn't agree with me in terms of the fees and charges for filming. To me, the amounts for the medium and high ends of those charges seem to be quite low. So I think I've made most of the points.
Thank you, councillor Sanderson. Any other speakers for? Against?
Question.
Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering, when you get to page 56, where we start to detail the capital works program for paths, sporting fields, roads and bridges, etc. Is that priority based on our digital asset management plan, which we've invested a lot of money into? What's the basis for that that listing?
I'll pass to the Director of Infrastructure. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, it's based on our asset data, prioritised based on condition and utilisation.
Councillor Williams.
That's good to hear. Is there any visibility of that? Can we see the prioritisation based? Because when we last looked at the digital asset management plan, when we developed it a few years ago, it was provided in a format that you could readily see how much it's going to cost as priority against all the other. So it'd be useful to be able to have that available for be able to see that as well, rather than just a list. Because things like
Councillor Williams, I think we'll take that on notice rather than going into them tonight. But I think that data has been available to us before. But I take your point.
Well, I just want to be reassured that we're making use of that. While we've got the officer here, I'll just ask a question in relation to 58, page 58, which deals with stormwater and drainage. It's got against local government area flood study of 120,000. I chaired that committee many years ago, and we've done the study. It now comes down to what's above, which is stormwater management plan and developing that. I was just wondering, is that what's involved in that?
So that's funded through section 712, and we did a briefing earlier this year, which we will have to come back on. We're doing some more work with our consultant, but there were several questions raised by councillors at that briefing, and we are preparing some about tagging and things. But that we can't final. We need to finalise that, and that funding is based on what's in our section 712.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Williams, any other questions?
I think we need to look into that in particular, because that is the exact amount of money that we put into the original study. And I would not like to think that we still have to spend that amount again. Because the resolution of council, which I think you seconded or moved, was that we were going to move forward on the issue based on consultation with the community. And that didn't include revisiting the flood study or flood studies, as far as I'm aware.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Any other speakers? Sorry, thank you, Director. Any other speakers for the motion? Against the motion? Right reply? Oh, sorry, Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Williams. Right of,
Yes, Mr. Mayor,
you're speaking for the motion?
against.
Against the motion?
Yeah, no, I, for the reasons that have been highlighted tonight, I think there is areas here which council can reconsider and reassess its priority allocation of funds. Because we are running a deficit, a significant deficit, which if you look at the projection into the future, unless we do try and rein in some of this expenditure, particularly the expenditure that is nice to have rather than essential. And I like to talk about discretionary and non-discretionary funding. There are things that are non-discretionary. Council has to deliver on its regulatory requirements, its compliance requirements, has to provide the services as expected by the community. But then there's the discretionary stuff. And I think that a lot of the issues raised here tonight by Councillor Emerson and by myself fallen in that discretionary funds. And until we sort out our long-term future, those discretionary issues should be looked at very carefully. So I think it needs further work. And even that issue I raised about the local government flood study, it's $120,000. Is that needed? Is that an artefact that shouldn't be in there? So I'm not confident at this stage, nor have I seen the prioritisation of the capital works program down to the individual streets and footpaths. I've raised the issue of Paul Street before. It doesn't appear to be here at all. And that's in a worse state than what George Street was when we visited with that. So I'm just curious as to make sure, not curious, I think we need to make sure that the prioritisation underpinning these decisions is clear, transparent, and the community can judge for themselves. Because years ago, it was not done in a way that community had trust or confidence in. It was done on the noisy wheel of the service. Whereas I think we tried to move to this digital asset management plan that is designed to take that discretion out of it, and it becomes a prioritised and transparent process.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Right of reply, Councillor Crassoy.
Thank you to the reporting officer and the directors who've all been involved in putting papers together for us tonight and for the community to consider. I'm aware that the community have 28 days, as do myself and my fellow councillors. So I do believe that we can all make written submissions over the next 28 days, and that will then be considered and presented in a report to council for that discussion. I've been on the council 5 years now, and I generally find that what we discuss in the briefings doesn't necessarily translate into the meetings, and nor necessarily should it. So, for example, the budget that was allocated to the town hall kitchen, I know we had some opinions on it in the briefing, and so we'll wait to see what the community say about that. But I wouldn't have expected the general manager, based on that feedback, if he felt strongly about it, to have taken it out, because of course it was a briefing and it's not where we direct him to do his job. So with that, thank you again. Every year it becomes more and more readable, more of a prospectus for our beautiful suburb and the great things that are potentially going to happen here. So I look forward to the community's feedback and the feedback of myself and my fellow councillors in the next 28 days.
Thank you, Councillor. I just want a point of clarification through the Finance Director, if I could.
Just in relation to the capital program, what really probably would be more useful is for it to actually say implementation. The notes that I have here is that this is carry forward money that was meant for this financial year. It has been itemised for us to carry forward into the following year, and it's most certainly for implementation measures and not just a flood study itself. So I think that's important to qualify that.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Now move to item 4.2, draft 2023-2024 budget, including long-term financial plan and fees and charges. Have I got a mover? Councillor Quinn, seconded. Councillor Crassoy. Any discussion? Councillor Quinn? Any speakers? Councillor Williams speaking for?
No, I've got a question on page 61. Above the word report, there is a paragraph. Through the long-term financial planning process or objective, our objective is to meet the financial sustainability principles, adopt a long-term financial strategy, and seek to engage the value for money procurement and expenditure on a diversification of resources, revenue resources, to maintain a balanced and surplus budget over the next 10 years. Looking at the projections, that is not really. I'm just wondering what the basis of that comment is.
General Manager or Finance Director?
Through the General Manager. Yes, there's two figures that come on our financial statements. First is net operating result, and the following one after that, which we've had some discussions about, is net operating result before capital grants program. Certainly this year that we will be returning a surplus. This council being the size that it is, we always must practice fiscal discipline, and it will be always a case of year on review. This financial year in particular, as opposed to 2 years ago when we prepared the special variation application, what has significantly changed is CPI, and that has had some knock-on effects on our long-term financial plan. Year on year, again, we'll adjust the 10-year financial plan. Certainly this year we have a net operating result surplus, but when you remove the capital grants, it is a deficit. So those two numbers have to be looked at together. So in terms of that particular statement, the statement is referring to the net operating result, because that ultimately is the income minus the expenses that we are bringing in, and that if expense includes the non-cash components in a financial statement such as depreciation.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Williams?
Yes, I refer to page 162, which is the base case spreadsheet. Maybe this is an accounting standard, I'm not quite sure, but all the income seems to have a negative against it, and all the outgoings and deficit seems to not, as it tends to confuse me as to what the current position is.
I take that on board, and this spreadsheet on the long-term financial plan is an Excel spreadsheet that we take out of our financial system. Typically, councils have income as a negative, it's an offset against expense, but I do take that on board, and before we go to public exhibition we'll actually go back and reformat that, because I do acknowledge that can cause confusion. So I'll certainly go back and do that. In terms of the result, essentially it is a operating result in surplus. When you minus the capital grants, that's when it does become a deficit.
Another question, if I
Councillor Williams?
About that surplus, we referred to $7 million surplus. I'm just wondering, if it's a surplus, that means we're not spending that capital. Is that right? Or how can you have a surplus if you're doing all the things we're going to do, like the Baronia Park facility and Victory Park? Doesn't that consume the capital?
Director?
Yep, no, but essentially over the last couple of years there's been a change in the accounting standard. Once upon a time, and I'll use development contributions as a similar example, development contributions, in the year that you receive it, you recognise the income irrespective if the program gets carried forward. With grants, on the other hand, there has been a change in standard. Once upon a time, you would recognise it in the year that you received the grant. Now, what you have to do is you put it into your liabilities in your balance sheet, and you can only recognise it in the year that you expend it. Expenses in the income and expense statement, when you see an income and expense statement, the expenses in capital won't be contained in there. The expenses in the income and expense statement is your day-to-day operations. In a typical year, in 365 days, they are your staff costs, they are contractors for maintenance, they're your business as usual day-to-day costs. Capital grants in our council, we are funding our capital program through a combination of sources. One is general funds, just normal rates. Second is special rating variation. The third is developer contribution. And the fourth is capital grants. We also do some asset maintenance through operational grants. Typically, unlike a lot of other councils, the majority of our capital grants are funding the new assets. Developer contributions are funding upgraded assets. So our day-to-day operations typically are covered by the rates, the general funds, and the developer contributions, our day-to-day asset program. New assets are being funded through new capital grants that we apply as we need them.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Crassoy.
Thank you again to the directors and the general manager for the report they've given us. I would just, on the note that Councillor Williams is married, just in that paragraph that he read out, it does actually say it's our objective to meet our financial sustainability principles. And I think that, well, certainly what I've seen in my time on council, right now, with the special rate variations we have and with the team that we have, we've never been in a better position to be delivering on our services as best as we currently can, planning for future sustainability, and at the same time planning for opportunities to generate income. And that is what we need to do. We need to start generating our own income better. And although it's still an objective, it's still a big goal, I do feel my observation over the last few years is that we are struggling hard and working hard to get closer and closer to that. So I commend the general manager and the whole team on trying to work within those parameters, because it is an objective. And if you don't have an objective to strive towards, I don't understand why we don't just all pack up and go home.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, any other discussion? Councillor Quinn, right of reply.
Mr. Mayor, look, I just want to say that this document and the one before it, I personally have full confidence in the general manager and the director in presenting these reports tonight. I think they have been very professionally presented to us. I think appropriate rigour has been applied in these documents. Consideration has been given to all factors on balance and all the relevant standards. And I personally will not be micromanaging or second guessing what I see as a very professional approach taken by the director and staff. So I'm more than happy to support the recommendation that's here tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Now move to item 4.3, summary of council investments as at 30 April 2023. Have I got a mover? Moved, Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Quinn. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. I'll move to item 4.4, licence renewal agreement, Happy Hen Social Enterprise Incorporated. Moved, Councillor Crassoy, seconded Councillor Prieston. Councillor Crassoy.
Yippee! This is very exciting news. A whole 5 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
5.
Well,
3 + 2.
yeah. Look, the hens, when they came to us a few years ago and they wanted a little patch of postage stamp down at Henley, I think everyone had a mixture of trepidation and excitement at what could happen there, and they really have brought the whole community along, not just the Hunters Hill community, frankly. Actually, a lot of people from out of the area go there as well, and that is what social delivery is about. So I think they're doing great work. They strive to take on new initiatives and to embrace collaboration with other community groups and organisations. I don't know what the future of Henley is going to be, but I am very happy that for the next few years, at least, the hens are part of it. And congratulations to them. They've worked dang hard and they've worked alongside us the whole way. So good on them.
Thank you, councillor Craswell. Any other discussion, councillors? Any speakers against? For? Councillor Sanderson.
Very small amendment. I hope councillor Craswell will accept this without it being necessary to vote on it. And what I would suggest is we insert a point 2 in between point 1 and the current point 2, and that would read that clause 9.2b and 9.9 relating to graffiti removal be removed from the licence agreement.
Councillor Craswell, you.
I am happy to take that in, Mr. Mayor. I don't know why I thought we did that last time.
Councillor Preston, are you comfortable with that?
I don't understand what we're doing.
We are,
Removing
sorry,
C, no, removing 9.2B.
the provisions relating to graffiti removal.
Why?
Probably a question of councillor Sanderson, I'd imagine.
I asked the
Yes, you
question,
may.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Why are we removing that?
Can I speak on the matter?
Yeah, I'll just allow you, while we're getting the wording, I'll allow you to answer the question.
Well, as the licence agreement is currently drafted, the responsibility for graffiti removal rests with the Happy Hens. We had a similar clause in the one of the previous proposed agreements with the bridge club, and I raised that. We managed to remove it. I think it'd be appropriate to remove that for both cases.
Councillors Craswell and Preston, are you happy to incorporate that into your motion?
Yeah, as mentioned, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take that graffiti removal into it as the landlords and with a social enterprise down there. I don't think they've had any graffiti issues down there for a very long time, actually. And with all the public activity that's down there, I think there's a much more deterrent anyway.
Thank you, councillor.
But
Yep.
yes, I'm happy to take it in.
Councillor Preston?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, okay, that has become the motion then, so I'll just for complete clarity, that number 1 is that with the report is received and noted, that number 2, that council enters into a 5-year 3+2-year option for the licence agreement with Happy Hen Social Enterprise for a fixed term commencing the 1st of July 2023. 3, that clause 9.2b and 9.9 relating to the graffiti removal be removed from the licence agreement, and that 3, commencing rent be set at $0 per annum.
We could do it. I think it would read better if we exchange 2 and 3 so that we've amended the agreement before we
Okay.
make the agreement.
And what I would say is, it would read better if you had sent the amendment earlier today.
I was writing this stuff out at 5 o'clock tonight.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, General Manager.
Through you, can I just confirm with councillor Sanderson that what's on the screen is exactly what he is seeking?
I'm sorry, I can't read those with my glasses.
If I may, General Manager, I think councillor Sanderson's just saying flip 2 and 3.
Yep.
So the graffiti removal piece goes number 2, and then council enters into is number 3.
I think that's correct. Thank you, councillor Quinn.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Or what I'm trying to ask is, can we confirm with councillor Sanderson that that wording is exactly what he's handed up to us?
I couldn't find my glasses.
Okay, I will read out the motion as it is presented. Motion that the report be received and noted. 2, that clauses 9.2 part B and 9.9 relating to graffiti removal be removed from the licence agreement. The 3, that council enters into a 5-year, 3-year plus 2-year option licence agreement. Oh, I lost it for a moment. With the Happy Hen Social Enterprise on a fixed term commencing on the 1st of July 2023, and that 4, that the commencing rent be set at $0 per annum. Councillor Sanderson, is that? Yes. And councillors, are we happy?
I'd like to move another amendment.
Councillor Preston?
Should I do it now?
Yes.
Before we?
If you may, yes.
Okay, thank you. it's just a really minor thing, but we just don't have the ABN of the Happy Hens included anywhere.
I think that might be venturing into the operational, councillor, but I'm sure that
You
can
need
be
it in
inserted.
For it to be available.
Yep.
So I can read it out to you if you want the ABN.
You've looked the ABN up.
Yep.
Amendments that, is there a second to the motion?
The
Uh,
ABN of the Happy Hen Social Enterprise Incorporated be included on the front page. Oh no, I haven't got it there. On page 4, pages 4, 32 and an extra A. Maybe if you want to put in brackets behind the words ABN.
Is the mover happy for that to be incorporated into the motion? So it's no longer an amendment, it's just the motion as a part 5.
The ABN is, oh. Ready? In the brackets. 91 space 226 space 189 space 542.
Thanks. Thank you, councillor. That is now the motion. And again, I will read the motion because I'm required to under the Act. That the report be received and noted as part 1, part 2, the clauses 9.2b and 9.9 relating to graffiti removal be removed from the licence agreement. That 3, the council enters into a 5-year term, 3-year plus 2-year option licence agreement with the Happy Hen Social Enterprise on a fixed term commencing on the 1st of July 2023. 4, that the commencing rent be set at $0 per annum, and that 5, that the ABN, as noted on the screen, to the Happy Hen Social Enterprise be included on pages 4, 32 and annexure A. Councillors, are we all aware of what we're voting on? Any discussion? Councillor Williams.
Yes, I'd like to speak in favour of the motion, if I may, Mr.
You
Mayor.
may.
I was down there on Friday and it was a buzz. There must have been 20 people working away. It's a very exciting place to be, and it does provide opportunities for a whole range of people from different backgrounds, different needs. It really is a credit to the people that run it, the Happy Hens. They do it very unassumingly. It all just works like clockwork. People take their initiative and enjoy the experience wholeheartedly. And the opportunity now with the extension of the service that they provide there, I think is long overdue, and it's really great that council can embrace that. Like with the lease, it's been a long time before we can give them some certainty. There's been a lot of difficulty with getting the plan of management finalised, and then there was a whole series of issues associated with legalese around the licence. So it is wonderful that we've got to this point now where the hens have some level of security, and they're now able to grow and provide an enhanced service to those people and to our community. And I highly commend people to go down there and have a cup of coffee on Friday mornings. It's a delight.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other discussion, councillors? For, against? Right to reply, Councillor Crasoy. If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.5, licence renewal agreement for the Hunters Hill Bridge Club. We do have a speaker to this motion, Mr. Jeff Lawson. Would you like to come to the podium? Thank you, Mr. Lawson. You have 5 minutes. You have 3 minutes, sorry.
Pleasure to be able to say good things about this. Now, the Hunters Hill Bridge Club has been operating for nearly 50 years. In all that period, been renting premises from the Hunters Hill Council. We're a volunteer-run, not-for-profit organisation. Our club has 270 members, and on their behalf, I want to express our appreciation that in the last 12 months or so, our dealings with council have been have improved markedly and are now efficient and pleasant. Negotiations for renewal of our licence to rent the main hall at Henley Community Centre have been fair and amicable. And for that, I wish to thank the general manager and his staff, all of whom have been a pleasure to negotiate with. So,
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you very much. Councillors, any questions? No, thank you for that positive feedback, Mr. Lawson. It's much appreciated. And I know that the staff are working hard to make sure that they live up to that amicable goal. Councillors, is there a mover to the motion? Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Crassoy.
Before that's moved, I think we need to do the same as what
Yes,
we did
the
with the Henley group.
Uh,
It's to have an ABN.
Ended already? What is it?
I've got it.
Councillor
To have that clause.
Prieston's leaning on her legalese, so we'll just add that. I'm sure the mover and seconder are happy.
Has it?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
It does have the
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
It has the graffiti. The graffiti clause removed. Yeah.
okay. And so Councillor Williams, I'm preempting that you want to add a part 4, not an amendment as just a part
move
4.
as The motion to incorporate the ABN in the license agreement.
I think it could almost be. Oh, there you go. Yep, there you go.
Yep.
Way ahead of me. Councillor Prieston, with your indulgence, would you like to read out the ABN of the Hunters Hill Bridge Club?
Of course. Are you ready?
In one moment.
Yeah.
Shoot.
62 space 086 space 829 space 376, and that's also on, oh, it doesn't have a page number. Just say the execution page and Annex A and the first page. So yeah. Page 1, the execution page, and Annex 1, Annex A.
As the mover and seconder happy with that? Yes. Councillor Williams.
Can I just briefly speak to that? As with the
Until
previous
yeah.
item, the Bridge Club, as we've heard, has a very long and important association with our community. It has been a major contributor to many members of our community. I think membership's about 400 odd. And it provides an outstanding service for those that want to play bridge, and gives a diverse opportunity within our community to do something different to what would normally be provided. It's important that we get a meaningful lease in place. Again, as with the Henley community, Henley Hens, this has been long overdue to get some certainty and some structure around the opportunity for the club to use the hall in the main office area in an appropriate way. So I commend this to council. It's a very important thing for our community to get this resolved.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other discussion, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is carried unanimously. Councillors, I'll move to item 4.6, solar PV panel installation for the town hall at 22 Alexandria Street, Hunters Hill. Moved, Councillor Crassoy, seconded, Councillor
Sanderson first.
Councillor Sanderson.
So he moved it.
Yes, you've moved the motion with an amendment?
No.
No? Before you do, Councillor Sanderson, we're breaking all goals today. I will just, there was not an application to speak, but I did, through the General Manager and Customer Service, receive this email from Reverend Armstrong regarding item 4.6, solar panel PV panel installation at Town Hall. I was delighted to see the proposal to install solar on the municipal town hall. I believe that it is a very positive step forward in dealing with the ongoing climate crisis and good to economic management by our council. My parish has benefited immensely from solar being placed on our church hall in terms of both the reduction of carbon produced and also economically allowing us to return these funds to be expended across our community and also to reduce costs for hall users. I congratulate the staff for bringing this report and encouraging all councillors to support it. The Reverend Michael Armstrong. Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is something that most of us have wanted to see happen for quite some time. The good thing about it, the principal things at this stage, we're already using fully offset power, but at the same time, we are actually, reducing our expenses. So it's a great result all round, and many of us have wanted to see it for so long. I look forward to the extension that the new director will be working on to extend this initiative to other council-owned properties. It's an absolute no-brainer and a thing we should be doing at the rate that we can manage to roll it out.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Any speakers against? Any speakers for?
Just a question.
Councillor Williams, question.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering, it makes reference here that because this is a fund, it's designed that it grows with time through the initiatives producing revenue or savings for council. In reading the report, I see that it will return the 14,000 into the pool, but it makes no reference that I can see of the savings over the years being redirected back into the pool so that we have a bigger pool to be able to contribute more with sustainability outcomes. Is there an intent to do that? It didn't jump out at me in the documentation. It just sort of implied that the $14,689 for the small technology certificates would be inputted, but it doesn't refer that I can see to the savings going back into the fund.
General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The director's jumping out of her seat to answer that question as the author of the report.
For you, Mr. Mayor, the Director of Finance and I are yet to discuss that, but the intentions, we've certainly had some brief discussions about that, but that will form part of a separate report on more strategic. But if I take your point, and I did think about it, but I think we need to have some further clarification. But that is definitely yes.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, any other discussion? Councillor Vergara speaking for, against, question?
Did the council officers consider a battery as part of the PV solar system? And if not, why not?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this stage we haven't considered a battery. We're just putting on the PV panels, but it may be something we'll consider at a later stage. Why not? Due to funding.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, any other speakers against, for? Right of reply? No. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is carried unanimously. I'll now move to item 4.7, request for fee waiver, Mamas and Co Choir fundraising concert. Councillor Crassoy moved, second to Councillor Quinn. Councillor Crassoy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. As a retired mama, I recommend this request for the council. Mamas and Co have been bringing joy to the hearts of Hunters Hill and Gladesvillians for, I think this is their 11th year, if not 12th. And every year that they do it to raise money for really important social causes, often causes that have affected members of our choir. So if I can suggest that if there is a potential lost income in approving this, I would say that the social cost benefit of delivering it far outweighs it. It's a choir of, usually we hover around the 45 mark, and our concerts usually have a few hundred people in attendance. We used to hold them at the little church at Baronia Park, the United Church there. We moved to St Joseph's Hall for quite a few years, but the acoustics didn't suit us quite as well. But it was very generous of Joey's to allow us to attend, and I think Councillor Quinn would have to agree. We always left the place spotless. If there was ever an opportunity to showcase Henley as a venue for weddings, parties, and birthdays, then it's a mama's concert. It's a beautiful location, and everyone that leaves filled with joy and goes away, I'm sure, to plan their 50th, 60th and 70th birthday parties at Henley in the future. So it's, as far as I can see it, it's a win-win for us to please welcome the mamas to Henley and attend their concert when we have our invitations.
Thank you, councillor. Any other speakers? For, against? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Now move to item 4.8, public exhibition of the draft Hunters Hill Lane Cove Parramatta Ride Bushfire Risk Management Plan. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Vergara. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is one of these things that's taken a long time to create and get to this point. I chair the Bushfire Management Committee for that precinct, which embraces Hunters Hill, Lane Cove, Parramatta and Ryde. It's required to be there because of the New South Wales Fire Services Act, and its major functions are listed in the documentation here, but basically it's to get to identify a risk profile and to identify management steps that need to be taken to minimise the risk against that. And the risk is basically about assets and about loss, as we've seen in recent years, of property and lives associated with bushfire risk. In our context, it's not quite as bad, although we have lost a house or two in recent times in this district. It's fairly urbanised, but we do have national parks and bushland associated with it, which poses risk. Now, the work that's carried out as a result of this is carried out by the Fire and Rescue in association with Council. Council provides the access and the communication and consultation with the residents, and the Fire and Rescue carry out the actual burn process, and it's subsidised by the state government through their bushfire management program. We did get a management plan together, 2 years ago now, and it was about ready. It was put up to the government to sign off on. But as bureaucracies work in funny ways and mysterious ways, at the last minute they decided to change the methodology around it and brought in this multi-layered, 40-layer computerised AI system that took the guesswork out of the process and fully mechanised the whole thing. And that required to go back through a whole series of consultation with the landholders, which are represented on the committee, to make sure that the new process reflected the risk and management strategies appropriately. So we've now come to the point where that management plan is now ready to be exhibited, and it's before council tonight to be endorsed for exhibition.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other discussion? For? Against? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. I now move to item 4.9, notification of public exhibition land approvals policy, trade or business on community land. We do have Mr. Davis, the reporting officer, online to answer any questions. Have I got a mover, councillors? Moved, Councillor Quinn, seconded. Councillor Williams. Councillors, any questions of Mr. Davis or Councillor Quinn? Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, what I wondered about is if we go to page 327 of the business paper, under 1 exemptions, bodies that are exempted are local sports clubs, local schools, or corporate groups. Why are corporate groups included in that list?
Through the General Manager, Mr Davis, if he's online.
Just through the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ed, could you hear that question okay from Councillor Sanderson?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor, the clause has been grandfathered in from the previously adopted policy. It is my understanding that there is a separate policy and application process under Council's general use procedures that cover all sporting groups, local schools and corporate groups, which is why they're exempt from this personal training policy.
Councillors, any other questions of Mr Davis? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering why it's limited to those two categories of personal trainers and charitable events. Our parks are quite regularly used by dog carers for walking purposes as a direct income source. I was just wondering why they haven't been incorporated in. And I appreciate they weren't in the previous iteration, but there is an opportunity here to ensure that there's a policy around that activity, which is quite prevalent across our reserves.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Mr Davis.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Councillor, the dog walking activities haven't been included in this policy. However, they are still captured under activities that do require approval on council land, and they go back to the general principles of under the Act, being that they be in the public interest and applications are still required to be assessed under those. There's just no specific criteria that do need to be assessed against. However, a further policy can be brought before council for exhibition if council like, that does specifically address dog walking.
Do I take it from that you're saying, Mr Davis, that can be covered anyway without a specific policy?
That is correct.
Yes. Councillors, any other questions of Mr Davis? If not, any speakers for or against? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is carried. Councillors, I'm going to ask, given that we have Mr Davis online, that we get someone to move item 4.16 forward. Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Prieston. All those in favour? Against, that is carried. Now move to item 4.16, advertising signage and A-frames on roads and public spaces enforcement policies for adoption. Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any questions of Mr Davis? If not, looks like you're off the hook almost. No, Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, I just wondered, I've asked a similar question just before it went out for on exhibition. How will electoral posters be treated when they're in the vicinity of a polling booth?
Mr Davis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor, the electoral signage is covered under the State Environmental Planning Policy, and it's also covered under the Local Government Act and Electoral Act, depending on what election is occurring. There are specific legislation surrounding that. In relation to electoral signage that is on a road reserve, that would be covered under this policy, which also ties into the requirements under the Local Government Act that say essentially no electoral material should be put on council-owned land, which would include roads. This policy does not apply to private land or anything outside of a road reserve, which would then default back to the Local Government Act, the Electoral Act, and the State Environmental Planning Policy for exempt development.
Councillor Quinn, you got a question?
Just to clarify that, my understanding is that electoral signage cannot be directly on council land. In other words, footed, sitting on council land, but it can be, for example, on a vehicle that might be parked on a road. But because it's not directly on the council land, that's okay. Is that correct, Mr Davis?
Councillor Gwynn, that is my understanding.
Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Can I ask a question along that line? So does that mean that in future there'll be no A-frames of signage outside the polling booths for any election?
Under this policy, I'd say yes.
Well, but didn't they just say that the
But there are certain provisions that get covered under the state government SEP, and provisions that are covered under the New South Wales Electoral Commission for state and local elections, and federal elections under the AEC. Mr. Davis, do you want to elaborate on that?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So that is correct. The policy doesn't overrule or discount anything that is in the Act. It is still consistent with the Electoral Act and the Local Government Act and the state policy. This policy only relates to the road reserve, specifically being the nature strip, the bridges, the awnings, structures, drains, fence posts, monuments, and the road itself, the footpath. It doesn't relate to any council-owned property or any halls or schools or anything of that nature. It would prevent an A-frame sign being placed on the footpath out the front of a polling place, though.
Councillors, any other questions of Mr. Davis? Councillor Sanderson.
Just to extend that particular question, that would also exclude a sign on a fence that was council land, if it's part of a road reserve. So then it starts to get a little bit technical. I would have thought that your road reserve, the fence might be behind it or it might be on it. So how do you make that distinction?
I can suggest, I'd worry about that when it happens.
I would agree entirely. Councillors, any other questions of Ms. Davis? If not, we'll move into debate.
Put a very minor amendment. That would be that there's a clause 5 that does exclude various things, that we add a point F. It's just electoral posters and signs in the vicinity of polling places.
Sorry, councillor, let's just get this up. Have you got a copy? Yeah.
Mr. Davis, even though we've already been on public exhibition.
Sorry, whilst we have you on the line, Mr. Davis, could I just ask the proposed amendment is that insert before point 1 that advertising signage A-frames on road reserves and public places enforcement policy includes a clause 5.F, F being electoral posters and signs in the vicinity of polling places. I would imagine that would not be legal under the provisions of the New South Wales Electoral Commission and AEC laws governing whether or not you can do that around a polling place. Have you got a view on that?
My understanding of the Local Government Act prevent under clause, I think it's 356E, prevents any person displaying a poster on any council land, crown land that is occupied, and that excludes a polling place. But
that excludes a polling place.
That's correct. It can be at a polling place.
Okay. With that information in mind, Councillor Sanderson, are you happy not to proceed with this resolution, given it might be in contravention of the Act?
I don't believe that it would be. It does leave a bit of a gap in the policy.
We've just heard the advice of the author of the report that it would be.
Yeah.
Can I suggest, Mr. Mayor, that I think if we are going down that track, that is a huge precedent for election periods, and are we actually creating a burden that's just not going to work,
Yes.
to be quite frank.
Well,
Given the
my
dynamic of an
concern,
election period.
my concern would be it would not be enforceable and would be in contravention of the Local Government Act.
I mean, effectively, Mr. Mayor, that would mean that everything that was in front of this council
Yes.
chamber before the last election can't go there.
Correct. Correct.
Everything.
General Manager, I'm not sure if we can accept that amendment if it is not consistent with the Act.
Well, just thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to reiterate what you said before, that the author of the report has extensive knowledge of the interpretation of the Act. The other thing that slightly concerns me is dealing with changes after we've been on public exhibition. That worries me, generally speaking, but at the end of the day, I will adhere to the advice from the officer.
Councillor Sanderson, you happy to withdraw?
I'll go withdraw.
Thank you.
It's going to be lost. It's going to be
Well,
lost
not
anyway.
necessarily, but
Yeah.
you know, I think probably should have had. it
Yeah,
before we got on.
thank you, councillors. We'll move back into debate. Any other discussion? For, against, right of reply? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried with councillor
I was for it.
Councillor Sanderson against. I'll move back to item 4.10, regional waste strategy. Councillor Crassoy, seconded Councillor Vergara. Councillor Crassoy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And while I'm here, I'd also like to thank you for kindly advocating for me to attend the Mayoral Summit at Sydney Town Hall last week on the subject of waste and the looming waste crisis that all of Sydney is facing. And it was just wonderful to see so many mayors and councillors and strategic council staff working together to face this, what is going to be a crisis. And it's also timely because, of course, Hubbard's Hill Council is hosting a sustainability event on the 17th of June, and it's going to be all about waste and how we can reduce this. One of the points that was raised at the summit last week was that we must all give an undertaking to reduce the waste that we create in the first place. And we do that by the choices we make at the shops. And we want to reuse it and repurpose it before we recycle it, and of course re-engineer it before it ultimately goes to landfills, which Sydney is rapidly running out of. Another note that the New South Wales government have mandated for councils is that we provide food and garden waste collections to all households by 2030. This is a huge concern for all Sydney councils because, of course, where does it go? Because the state government doesn't have a solution for that yet, and they don't have anything that they're publicly declaring in mind. So we need to work hard, and we do it by developing these strategies and working in lockstep with our fellow councils. And so it was just very exciting to be at that event where I think everyone seemed to be on board that this is something really important and it's tangible. It's not climate change, which took so long to get so many people on board with. This is waste, and we're going to see it mounting up in the outer suburbs of Sydney if we don't do something about taking responsibility for it. So I thank the officer for providing the report. I was thrilled to be part of NESROC and to watch them as they collaborated to bring this report to us. And I just hope that we as a council can do more to send our voice to the state alongside our fellow councils, because while rubbish is one of the 3 hours of local government and it's something we have to deliver, state and federal government have a role to play. So thanks for the report. I look forward to seeing some elements of it on display at our Waste Wise event on the 17th of June. And there's a lot to wrap our heads around, and we need to be very proactive about it.
Thank you, Councillor Crassoy. Oddity, you and I love talking about waste, which I'm sure bores the socks off a lot of other people, but I love it. Councillors, any other discussion? Councillor Quinn.
Mr. Mayor, look, I'd simply say that this is a very good example of why it is so important for us to be part of NESROC and the important advocacy work that NESROC does on behalf of the Northern Sydney County. Will lead to some great outcomes.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn. Spoken like a former president of NESROC. Councillor Williams.
Mr. Mayor, I support the recommendation and also reflect on the importance in the role that's placed or played by the Northern Sydney Regional Organisation of Councils. One thing that does trouble me with this process is that we were back at this same point 3 or 4 years ago when China stopped taking rubbish, and they're now stopping the Moo process, which really does limit council's ability to contribute to the reduction in waste. And I noticed that we're only operating at the moment at 53%, and our target's 80%. And we're never helped by the state government in achieving these things, and it mostly hinders councils in achieving these goals. There's no government initiatives, either state or federal, that are to build these facilities. And we've had the problem with the soft plastic bags. No facility. We've now got all our aluminium cans going to the Netherlands, turned into aluminium and sent back to us. There's no foresight in the process as to how we can deliver the facilities that are required to meet these targets. So I think there is a real obligation on state government and federal government to pull their finger out and actually get on with building some of these facilities to accommodate the initiatives of our community and our council trying to reduce our waste load.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other discussion, councillors, for, against? Right of reply, Councillor Crassoy. Loves talking about waste.
Well, no, I will just say that I actually think it's the role of state and federal government to legislate to reduce waste and to stop the production of the sort of products that you can't get rid of and that need to go into a facility. And yes, we do need places to put it. I think as a country, if we're going to create it, we need to take responsibility for it ourselves. And if we can't take responsibility for it ourselves, then we just simply shouldn't be producing it. And people need to understand that and get on board with that. And how they understand that and get on board with that is through education. And so all levels of government need to support smarter choices by consumers, because we, all the consumers, are the people creating it at the end of the day. So we can blame government all we like, but we're the ones doing it and we need their help to undo it.
Thank you, Councillor Crassoy. I'll now put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Councillors, can I just get a feel for what items are left on the agenda that we want to speak to? Item 4.11, disclosure of interest returns. Any speakers?
Just a question, there doesn't appear to be any attachment.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the data provided, but there's nothing there to say who's provided it, what they've provided. I thought that was supposed to be tabled.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. I've got all your speaking notes. This is good. Excellent. All right. Item 4.9. Councillors, can I just check? So the item 4.11, there's a question which we'll take on notice. Item 4.12, development applications determined under delegated authority. And item 4.13, development applications determined by the DCU. No question. Yep, I'll put that out. Item 4.14, report on legal matters.
I have a question.
Yeah, okay. Item 4.15, Councillor Sanderson's going to speak to. Item 4.16 has been dealt with. Item 4.17, briefings and workshops. Item 4.18, planned events, July to September. Councillor Quinn. Item 4.19, minutes of the Bushland Management Advisory Committee. No speakers. Item 4.20, minutes of the Conservation Advisory Panel. No speakers. Item 4.12, minutes of the School Principals Liaison Committee held 4th of July 23. No. And our last item being item 4.22, minutes of the Sustainability Advisory Committee. No speakers. Councillors, can I then move that we have items 4.11, 4.12, item 4.15, 4.17, 4.19 and 4.22 moved in block. Moved, councillor Crassoy, seconded councillor Quinn. Any discussion? All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. I will now move to item 4.13. Councillor Williams had a question.
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, is it moved?
Yeah.
Moved councillor Williams, seconded councillor Preston. Councillor Williams.
The question is, has the original DA expired? Because what we've done here as a council is approved amendment without really knowing whether the original DA is going to be continued with or has started. So I was just wondering, is there any news as to whether or not council has sought to find out whether the original
Which
DA has been
which side is this relating to, councillor Williams?
There's only one in the.
Only one?
Yeah, it
High
relates
Street.
to the High Street.
I'll refer to the acting director.
Through the mayor, through the general manager, councillor, 67 High Street, the lapsing date was 9th of May, and council made a determination prior to that date, which is basically we get a DCU meeting prior to that date. So at the moment, we've checked the system, council's system. There's no construction certificate or a certified detail have been received to date. So council has no indication if they've started work at this point.
Councillors, any other questions? Councillor,
So if you get notified that prior to the 9th of May, a certifier, something was triggered through the certifier, then the DA.
So the certifier can, if they start works prior to 9th of May, they can basically like advise us.
Yeah.
Or it could be like in the old system where they could put a pegging and say, take a photo of it. They've made a substantial start. They've made a start.
Nothing is coming
But in our system, I've checked with the record system and we haven't received any construction certificates or principal certifying authority details.
thank you to the acting director. Councillor Bagara.
Isn't the section 455 approval give you another 5 years extended?
No, it's the mother application. The mother application had 5 years and there was 2 years added to it with COVID. So 7 years, and lapsing date was 9th of May. And we dealt with the DCU report prior to the 9th of May.
Thank you, acting director. Councillors, any other questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 4.14, report on legal matters. Moved, councillor Preston, seconded councillor Williams. Councillor Preston, you have a question?
Yes, please. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the acting director. I just want to know, reference 1151389 in the status report from HWL Ebsworth. The first item, they've already billed us so much. Could you?
What address is that one, sorry?
39
Alexander Street.
Could you maybe tell us why, like what's going on, what's so complicated? And also what's the section 34 agreement? You can take these on notice if you like, but
yeah,
my questions.
Acting director?
Yeah, through the council, through the mayor.
Take the questions later.
I can take it on notice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Quinn.
Yes, the question also, I notice 8 William Street is not in this report either, but I understand that's with the lawyers at the moment.
That's all illegal.
Yeah.
Works at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's not with the land and environment.
So these are only ones that are in court. Yeah.
That's correct.
Councillor Bagara.
A section 34 agreement is an agreement before determination by the Land and Environment Court. It says one was achieved for 39. What was the outcome? What was the?
Yeah, that's what I understand.
Acting director.
Okay. Basically, the application came in for 58 patrons. So we have reduced that for basically Mondays to Thursdays, resulting in 36 patrons. So we originally had to have 58. So Monday to Thursday, we reduced it to 36 through negotiations. And also the removal of 10 patron spaces from the footpath. So that's been reduced to. So no, there's no footpath anymore.
No footpath.
Dining, yeah.
No
sort of
footpath.
dining.
And just for you, Mr. Mayor, because I was off with COVID, I haven't had a chance to talk to the director about this, but it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the opponents have been communicated to about that decision.
Yes, today. That was sent a letter today from our solicitors.
So why does it say awaiting judgment?
Councillor Prieston.
Question. Why does it say awaiting judgment then?
Because it just came in
Yeah.
yesterday.
Just
Oh, right.
through you, Mr. Mayor, at the time of writing the report, councillor Prieston, which obviously we have to write, give or take a week in advance, the judgment not come through.
Councillors, any more questions about legal matters? Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Now move to item 4.18, planned events July to September. Councillor Sanderson.
4.15.
Sorry, put 15, sorry, report on the status of LEP DCP. I didn't use your cheat sheet. I apologise. Item 4.15, councillor Sanderson.
I'd like to put an amendment if I could. And it's just the insertion of some words and the addition of another. So we'll leave one as it is, then the council continue to receive monthly reports, including a report in relation to this matter. Once the associated LEP scoping report and draft DCP have been developed, then add the point 3 that the closing date for submission be extended to 8:30 a.m. on Monday, the 29th of May.
I'll add that to schools. All right. All right. Is there a seconder? Seconded, councillor Williams. Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, councillor, we'll just need to get it right on the screen before we start. I will add, we do have the reporting officer online. Kieran's just joined us, or Mr. Metcalf, I should say. Thank you, councillor Sanderson. You may speak to your amendment.
Right. Yeah, okay. Look, a couple of simple reasons for this. We have been having monthly reports on where the LEP and DCP is going. They were missed in, I believe, March and April, and we received one for April late. But of these reports, the first one that I noticed that actually mentioned the closing date for submissions was the report in tonight's business paper, which is given as the Friday, the 26th of May, 2023. So there are two reasons for the motion. One is to have a continuation of the reports we have been receiving, even though a lot of the time they don't vary very much from one month to the next. I would like not have a situation where we get no reporting until such time as we've got draft documents completed, which is what item 2 as it was drafted in the or in the recommendation suggests. I think that reporting needs to continue. So that's the reason for the insertion in item 2. And then the third point, being the closing date on the close of business on a Friday night, I'm aware that there are a lot of people still working on submissions. I haven't had a look through the submissions that we've got in the paper tonight. There are a couple of those there that are someone put a huge amount of work into. The quality of the submissions is just absolutely outstanding, as you would expect from our community. So I don't think it's going to make any difference whether things are received on closing date on Friday or the opening on Monday morning. But it will give our community a bit longer to make their submissions, and which I look forward to looking at.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Is there any speakers against the motion, the amendment, for the amendment?
Well, didn't you move the motion? So it's the motion.
That's the motion.
It's sorry, the motion.
Can we have it back?
Yep. We'll just pull that back up. Apologies. So if you just roll up, so recommendation would be 1, that the report is received and noted, that 2, the council continue to receive monthly reports, including a report in relation to the matter of the associated LEP scoping report and draft DCP have been developed, and point 3, that the closing date for submissions be extended to 8:30 a.m. on Monday the 29th of May 2023. Councillors, any speakers against the motion? For the motion? Councillor Williams?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important we give our residents adequate time to engage in this. I think it's also important that we do keep in touch with the progress of this most critical aspect of council's responsibility, and that's that LEP DCP instruments. It still is unclear to me, and at some stage I think somebody's got to put it in writing. What is the scope of this process? At the moment, we've got our residents providing very articulate and very well thought through views and thoughts, but I'm not quite sure what framework council now puts that within to make its decision to move on to the draft documentation. Is it a basic review? Is it a standard review? What are the elements which council will be looking for in these submissions to enhance and build stronger planning instruments for our community? So I support the motion that Councillor Sanderson has put forward, and I think in those monthly reports I would be very grateful for some further information about how this large volume of information we are collecting is going to be analysed and synthesised into the documentation.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other speakers for the motion, against the motion? Councillor Krasoi.
Not so much against, Mr. Mayor, but I just would like a point of clarification about what adequate time is defined as, because I understand that this has been open for public submission for how long through you, Mr. Mayor?
I'd have to refer to the General Manager, but certainly since the public meeting that occurred at Town Hall.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to the timeline, the tables of progress have been published with each monthly report. And can I also just reiterate that in the aftermath of the Town Hall, our strategic planner, above and beyond our efforts of consultation at the Town Hall, we actually proactively arrange meetings with stakeholders, including, for example, the Hunters Hill Trust, where they had an opportunity to come in and speak one-on-one with our strategic planner who's online. I would also like, Mr. Mayor, and look, to be fair, I have no issue about the extension to Monday. I mean, Friday, Monday, it doesn't really make any difference. But perhaps just for the comfort of councillors, that our director can come and give a summary in regards to how this has been clearly articulated on our project pages.
Thank you, Mrs. Goodman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, as reiterated by the General Manager, we basically have been receiving back on the LEPGCP since our community meeting, which was around 15th of March. We've received substantive submissions in addition to general phone calls and emails that have come through. So what our strategic planner, Kieran Metcalf, has formulating what he believes to be a fundamental scoping report, which is essentially forming together, looking at clauses within our existing LEP and how they amended to strengthen those controls based on community feedback received to date. Personally, I would have no issue at all in extending of engagement to the Monday morning. I'm sure Kieran wouldn't problem with that as well. Once the scoping report is finalised, obviously it will come back to council for consideration. It will go for gateway determination to the state government. It will also then come back to council for a public exhibition phase as well. So it will go back out for another 28 days as a minimum for the community to once again consider that, and for council to have another look at those adjustments or amendments based both community and state government feedback. So I'm not sure if Mr. Metcalf has anything else to add to that, but that's an overall summary.
Thanks very much, Annie. Just through you, Mr. Mayor. Can I also say that, and before I throw to Kieran, the other piece, of course, that's very important is that the Metcalf has had an extensive interaction with council's long-serving former lawyer, Mr. John Cole, to also get feedback about the strengthening of the narrative within his scoping report. But Kieran, would you like to just synthesise a concise response to questions? I also say that, and before I throw to Kieran, the other piece. Very good.
Sorry, Kieran, can you just turn off the live stream in the background? We're getting a bit of feedback.
You have to come off mute, but Kieran.
Thank you, General Manager. Look, I really appreciate that that overview. Look, it's been a very extensive community consultation process to date, obviously, as part of developing a scope for the process. So we're looking to go through all of the submissions. They've been summarised and put in the council report, but we'll be looking to take all of that information, into consideration and have that put in, the scoping document, which once again we're intending to put back to the elected council, put back in front of the community, and just make sure we're calibrated on what's inside that documentation before we would go to the state government to seek review of that, and certainly well before we were to commence the preparation of a planning proposal. So there's still obviously a substantial process to go through, and much community consultation that will obviously go with that. So, but look, I certainly have nothing further to add from what's been spoken on this item. That's very much aligned with where we're at and where we're heading.
Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. Councillors, any questions whilst we've got Mr. Metcalf on the line? No? If not, Councillor Vergara.
Just speaking against the
Speaking against the amendment? The motion, sorry, the motion.
Over 2 months' time since 15th of March, extensive consultation. This is the consultation before the consultation we actually have to do. And we've got a funnel at the moment because no one knows what's happening. So you're getting submissions about things that will potentially not even be part of this review. I feel like it's spinning wheels, wasting time. So my view is just move on, crack on.
Thank you, Councillor. Any speakers for the motion? Against the motion? I reply, Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We're talking about 2 days, a matter of convenience. It will make absolutely no difference to staff, even if they were inclined to work on these items over the weekend. They've got a pile of them there already. So having the stuff arrive at after the weekend, after and if that means at the end of the day we have more excellent submissions, as I'm sure we will have, the extension is certainly worthwhile. As to the information we receive, I would not be comfortable for this process to progress to
Just one moment.
Sorry, councillor.
Sorry.
Continue.
Yes, look, I wouldn't be comfortable for this process to continue to the point, as the recommendation suggested, that once the associate LEP scoping report and the draft DCP have been developed, that leaves us with little information to go on between now and then. I want to understand what is going on as this process develops. So I'm quite surprised that anyone would suggest opposing my amendment or my motion.
Mr. Mayor, I know there's been speakers, just a point of clarification.
Yes, councillor Krasoy.
On my comment earlier, it wasn't that I was planning to vote against it. It was more the assertion that the residents hadn't been given adequate time. They have been, and the extra few days is just a generosity because it's really no skin off anyone's noses. But the suggestion that the community hasn't had adequate time is.
Thank you, councillor. I would also add that there is a formal process that we're entering into that will provide another opportunity for anyone who would like to write a submission to write a formal submission based on a planning proposal. Councillors, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. I'll now move on to item. Apologies. Item 4.18, councillor Quinn.
I was just a question, Mr. Mayor. About
Have I got a mover?
I'll move it, yes.
Moved, seconded, councillor Krasoy.
About
Councillor Quinn.
I noticed that
Yes.
it's mentioned in the report. What is the thinking of the committee? Because it's not set out in the report.
I will pass through the general manager to Ms Jones.
Councillor Quinn,
Thank you.
the intention for Hunter School Day is to run a competition with our local schools. There'll be a photography competition. Students can enter a photo that encapsulates the spirit or the essence of Hunters Hill, and the winning photograph will be featured in the annual report. The intention is also to promote that story and that essence of the next generation of our local residents through our other communications channels around Hunters Hill Day. So things like our e-news, our website, the email signature, it goes on to one of our emails, and the photography competition was liaison committee.
Just for you, Mr. Mayor, just add that councillor Quinn, I felt quite passionate in talking to Jackie about this, that a little bit like Anzac Day, that it's important that we get our youth coming through and understanding Hunters Hill Day. And I haven't made the official approach yet, but I'm hopeful of getting the editor of The Australian, who's a Hunters Hill resident, to sit on that judging panel for the photography award.
Councillors, any other questions? Shots. Thank you, Jackie. Any more discussion? No. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.20, minutes of the Conservation Advisory Panel. No, we didn't have any questions, did we?
No, I thought that was part of the block.
That was part of the block, as was 4.21. We have then only got a motion to move a confidential item 8 of the business paper. Need a motion to move into a confidential session under section 10.A2D1, as there is items of commercial in confidence. Moved councillor Quinn, seconded councillor Krasoy. All those in favour?
I've got an alternate motion. Or sorry, a foreshadowed motion.
That's moved and seconded, so you've got an amendment or a foreshadowed motion.
A foreshadowed motion that Item 8.1 be dealt with in two parts, with the award of contracts being dealt with in closed session and the remainder in open session.
That's a foreshadowed motion. I will, if there's no other discussion, put the motion to move into confidential session. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. We will now have to turn off the cameras and move, and the general public need to leave the chamber. So thank you.